weaknesses are about to be exposed.
We need more Grenadier.
Will we see it again?
Did you get rid of the Grenadier?
I guess that right there answers your question. Yes, I most definitely still have the INEOS Grenadier. In fact, since Shark Bay, it's done nearly double the amount of kilometres. Pushed and tested on Bonholm Beach.
We've travelled a great deal just to try this.
The Holland track for 300 kilometres of just mud and a short stint in Brunswick. Over 6,000 kilometres later, doesn't still impress me. Nothing's perfect. Well, I guess the real question is, what did and didn't impress me about the INEOS Grenadier over this extended period of time? Not only that, as a bonus, I invited Harry from Fire to Fork along to drive this for a full day at Bonholm Beach.
The beach is soft, but a climb off the beach is a very fitting challenge to measure its capability. I've caught up with Harry and we're both about to experience what the Grenadier can and perhaps cannot do.
Skip is about to face, I would say, most difficult sand challenge I can give it, considered by many to be the toughest beach in Australia to exit. Many beaches on the WA coast are extremely difficult, and because of that, some iconic beaches down here, we have rubber mats, just so you can get off the beach. This one doesn't have it, and hopefully never will, because it's a good challenge. What a great opportunity to give this a go. Now, definitely struggle to get around the corners. If you come to Bonholm Beach, you will learn about tyre pressures very fast if you didn't know already.
Before to climb, the flat yet very soft beach run would pose a great test for this car.
So good on the beach. The handling of this thing is just nice and soft. It makes harsh things feel gentle.
Alright, enough fun for me. Time to give Harry a go.
First drive of a Grenadier on the sand. Oh, they shouldn't have given me the keys to this. It's a good thing. That's full throttle. It's very nice. Definitely slower than a 300 series. Slower than my tuned Prado, because my tuned Prado has more power than this, so it makes kind of sense. But it's not a slow car. On the highway, I think they drive quite well. Nothing special, but certainly not bad.
Okay, so he likes it, but how much does he really like it?
It's really nice. It's really nice to drive. Off-road and drive well. Yeah.
Surprisingly, I got the keys back off Harry.
So we're not locked or anything, we're just in drive.
Let's see what it can really do.
Here we go, up Bonholm Beach exit. Take this really wide. Oh, get in one turn. Just slow me down a bit. It's very chewed up, hey. There's a lot of activity over the weekend, I think. Alright, this is the hardest bit. Now normally, you'd have to use a locker here. I'm not locked in this car at the moment. Wow, okay. Tyre pressure and wheel articulation scanning us to the top. This makes it feel easy. I'm really looking forward to seeing what Harry thinks about this.
Turning circle sucks on this thing. It drives it really well, but the turning circle sucks. Run, Ronny! Whoa, this beats it. Holy shit. Alright, that's it. Oh my god. It's so much better than my Prado. Doing that bit of track. It hurts. Ah. Power is very good. I do find myself dropping off the tracks a little bit occasionally because the steering is so slow. The suspension is very compliant. Kind of reminds me of like a GU in terms of the way it molds to the road.
What's your verdict, mate?
It's the easiest car I've ever driven up that hill in.
It's funny you should say that because I said that while I was driving up.
Yeah, I was driving up like, well, this is ridiculous. Just like idling up at base. I fell out of one of the ruts because I'm not used to steering yet. It's like just 20% slower than I'm used to.
Do you reckon because it's so wide, it's grabbing the edges of the track, or?
No, I don't know. It's just, it's got really direct, nice feel in the steering, but it's too slow. That's my sort of thought. So I go, oh yeah, cool, I've made a correction. They go, oh, it hasn't worked, I'll overcorrect. And then
It's like a boat.
And I'm overcorrecting, I'm like, oh, this is, yeah, it's like a boat. Yeah, it's like a boat in a current.
Interesting.
And as I left Bonholm Beach, I said this, which pretty much sums it up.
I'm telling you, this INEOS is full of surprises. You don't realise how capable it actually is until you take it through the paces on terrain that you've taken other vehicles on before. Until you do that, you don't really grasp how much better it is. At the end of the day, lower tyres and four-wheel drive on any track, any four-wheel drive, if you get that right, everything's going to go well. That said, through some difficult stuff that you have driven before and you know that you've had to, do certain things like use lockers or whatever to get up, and then you use a different vehicle with the same conditions and it just does it easier, that says something.
And of all the vehicles that I've ever driven off-road, four-wheel drives, this is the one that's required lockers least at a time. Well, that was very positive, but weaknesses are about to be exposed. 300 kilometers of mud and mud holes.
Like that, is it?
Mud and a lot of dirt definitely cause a few little issues with the Grenadier. Mud for most vehicles is a bit of a killer, especially modern vehicles that have a lot of extra tech. And it's not the tech that you really need that kind of fails. It's tech like the sensors, the bumper sensors, which constantly go off. These are the sensors I'm talking about. There's 4 on the front and there's about 4 on the back. These sensors, when they get mud on the face of them or behind, and I guess all modern vehicles with sensors will have this issue, they just go off. You can opt to not have those sensors on this vehicle, which I learned afterwards after asking the question, is if you do have them, every single time you get in the vehicle and start it up again, it's one of those things you have to switch off every single time. That's the button right there. Turn parking assist off, turns all those sensors off. The little tooty horn that's on the inside, there's 2 horns. Well, the toot horn stopped working. A bit of dirt got into the little pushy things on the door handles. These push buttons got a little bit dirty and kind of stuck, which meant that it stuck in and you couldn't close the door. Just had to toggle this thing on the back or wiggle it, and we found that that would fix the issue. However, on a positive note, it was nothing that was vital to the vehicle. So it continued on, it got through it fine. With a lot of modern vehicles, they have all these little fancy bumpers and little nooks and crannies with all that extra century wire and all that. That's where all this mud really gets caught. You see, on a very basic vehicle or older vehicles, you just hit them with a hose and the cavities are so big, it's much easier to clean them. But with these and all modern vehicles these days, it's very hard to clean them. So what fixed the issues in the end? Cleaning the car, that was it. Some of you might think that I'm being very picky on this vehicle, and you're correct, I am. The thing is, if a vehicle is that impressive in some areas, they're never perfect. You gotta point out the bad. Otherwise, it just seems like everything's positive. Here's another negative.
I'll return to this thought in the on-road segment. Back to the Holland track. Having had a handful of different vehicles on this particular track made it much clearer how the Grenadier really handled the terrain. And there are 2 sides to this coin.
Up Mount Holland in the INEOS. Some people call it the GRENADIER. How does it feel? A heck of a lot more comfortable. Definitely not getting tossed around as much, hey? Rolling with it. Oh, there goes my sunnies. Unless you jump in and out of the cars, you don't really gauge how much of a difference it really is. A bit more boaty, but definitely more comfortable.
I've heard those words before.
Overcorrect. And then
It's like a boat.
And I'm overcorrecting, I'm like, oh, this is, yeah, it's like a boat.
Let me define boaty. Slower steering, heavier vehicle, a bit delayed to act. In most situations, that is an advantage.
Because it has like a wider footprint, it just seems to, I don't know, It just seems to plant itself down much better. This will outflex most vehicles out there on the market. Its wheel travel is just so much better. And I think Harry even mentioned
Reminds me of like a GU.
similar kind of flex. I mean, it is pretty wide and it does more or less flex like a GU Patrol, you know. That said, its weight was a bit of a disadvantage when it came to the Holland track, where it was really muddy everywhere.
Oh, that back is really sliding.
Whoopsie, this would slide a lot more.
In slippery conditions like mud, especially close to the edge of a mud hole, there is more chance of the Grenadier sliding into the hole compared to other vehicles. And that's due to the steering, the weight, the footprint of the vehicle being wider. But in most other situations, this is an advantage. However,
Mud is its weakness.
6,000 kilometre on-road report.
Out of all the questions that I definitely need to answer, it's the left foot thing. It's now been 6,500 kilometres, and how do I feel about the left foot thing? I still stand by what I said earlier. After Shark Bay, I said it does get a little bit annoying with boots on. That said, if I don't wear boots in this vehicle, it's absolutely fine. And I've said that before and I still stand by that. With boots on a long drive, it's not the greatest. Having the opportunity to ask Harry the same question, he knew it was coming before I even asked it. Did you wear boots?
So I didn't notice the lump when I drove it today.
Okay, you knew where I was going with that.
Yeah, because the feet thing.
The left foot thing.
So I don't have overly big feet. I also rarely wear boots. For me, driving it was actually pretty easy because my foot just happily sits underneath the brake pedal. So it's not really a problem.
For those who own a Grenadier and who are watching this, what do you think about the left foot thing? Does it bother you? And can you give us your height and roughly your foot size too?
Given we're talking about on-road stuff, I'm going to vent a little bit about the AdBlue. That is such a pain to go through. First of all, I couldn't find anywhere unless it was a truck stop. I found a truck stop, stood there for ages. The guy wouldn't turn the pump on because he thought I was doing a runner, because why am I not at the normal pumps? And then he realised, oh, he's trying to get AdBlue. By the time I got the AdBlue nozzle in there, the breather kept clogging up because the nozzle was so small, the hole is so small. It took forever. The whole process took about half an hour. And that's when I found a place to do it. Now that I know that, I'm sure I can do it in maybe 20 minutes. At least you only have to do this every 6,000 to 7,000 kilometres.
A few things have been added to Skip, but only one of them is done and ready to go.
You were already aware of the 30-litre tank. And on the opposing side is that jerry can holder, which you could put water in, but I'm carrying fuel because there's one thing about this vehicle, the fuel capacity is not great. I left the electric pump at home for this particular tank here. I had to go and get one of those jiggle hoses, and it actually worked really good. Pretty damn fast too. You don't need to get a pump with this whole system, you just get a jiggle hose. And it's much easier than lifting it off and pouring it in. And I've increased the fuel range by a little bit more, and not by putting jerrys on the roof, no. I managed to do this by changing the rear ladder. This ladder is from Europe, I believe it's from Germany, a Latec. This can hold another jerry simply by this strap right here. You'd think it'll scratch the Grenadier, but it doesn't. Just gotta be careful when you put it in, like so. But when you do this part, that holds it and it does not move. And this door being rated at 100 kilos actually makes it a really good spot to put it. So the ladder just goes into the same holes as the factory ladder did. And speaking of the rear of the vehicle, I've also added the cargo barrier finally. It's not just to stop stuff from coming forward. I'm actually going to put stuff onto this, like attach it to it.
The rest will all be done the coming week,
Add a table right here.
in preparation for possibly its final journey, the Pilbara.
Adios.